With the second preseason game in the books for the Denver Broncos, it's time to update our 53-man roster and practice squad predictions. So without further ado, no fanfare, no BS, no stalling, let's get right into it. Starting off with quarterbacks, no change from last week. I still don't think there's a spot on the 53-man roster for Sam Ehlinger. He's going to make the practice squad, but this isn't like last year with Zach Wilson where you pretty much didn't have a choice. You had to keep him on the 53. This year, you can pass Sam Ehlinger through waivers. There's no concern about that. So Denver's only going to carry 2 quarterbacks on the 53 and Sam Ehlinger on the practice squad. Running back, I do have a change from last week. I think Tyler Bidet has earned a spot on the 53-man roster, and based off of what Mike Klis said in his interview on the 9 News broadcast, the Broncos are trying to retain both Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bidet. They like what both of them bring, and I think that both of them are ultimately going to make the 53-man roster. I'm not going to waver in my belief that Jaleel's going to make it. Mike Klis's comments only confirmed it, as well as his performance in that game on Saturday. I thought Jaleel was the best out of all the running backs who played, so I think Jaleel's a lock, and Tyler Bidet has definitely earned his spot on the 53. Blake Watson, practice squad, assuming he can clear waivers. That one is a little bit more questionable than a guy like Sam Ehlinger. Tight end, we've got another change from last week, and this is all predicated on the injury to Nate Adkins. Adkins went down with an ankle injury, and Sean Payton said that they decided to do a tightrope procedure, and he's going to miss the early part of the regular season. Because of this, I do have Lucas Kroll making it on the 53-man roster. He's been getting first-team snaps as an inline tight end, and even a couple of snaps here and there as a fullback. I know that goal line fumble will kind of leave a bitter taste in Caden Priestcorn's mouth because his day didn't end the way he wanted it to, but overall, I thought that he had a really strong performance in that preseason game against Arizona. Also looked really solid in the game against San Francisco. And what could separate Priestcorn from a guy like Kroll is that he can play that tight end hybrid fullback role. He fills Nate Adkins' role a lot more than Lucas Kroll would. Right now, I'm erring on the side of the veteran player who the team seems to trust, but Caden Priestcorn could complicate matters here, and he could sneak his way on in lieu of Lucas Kroll. Wide receivers, no change from last week. I have him keeping 6 wide receivers, and I should note also that the order these players are listed in is in no particular order whatsoever, so this isn't the way that I think the depth chart's going to work out, because I know some people are going to look at Devon Bailey listed as 2 and Trent Sherfield all the way at the bottom. I didn't feel like updating the order, so it's not in any particular order. So, offensive line. I do have them going with 9 offensive linemen, and we do have a slight change from last week. Last week, I did have Nick Gargiulo making the 53-man roster. Unfortunately, he went down with that season-ending knee injury. So, Calvin Throckmorton is going to take his spot on the 53. The Broncos trust him as a swing guard, and I thought that he played quite well in the Arizona game. Outside of that, no changes on the offensive line. No changes on the interior defensive line from last week. Edge rushers, no change. Linebacker, we do have a slight change. Corene Reed has been fantastic in training camp and in the 2 preseason games. He's a guy that right now I'm not sure they can pass through waivers as an undrafted free agent out of Utah. So I think Corene Reed is going to make it onto the 53-man roster. We'll talk about whose spot he's going to take here in a second, but right now I have Denver keeping 5 off-ball linebackers as opposed to 4. Cornerback, no change. Safety, here's a slight change. I don't think Sam Franklin is going to make the 53-man roster. He was initially signed to be a gunner, and based off of reports from people who I really trust evaluating special teams play, Franklin hasn't looked very good in that role. I think if Denver wants to keep him, it'll probably be in a practice squad capacity where they would elevate him on game day. So I think that Sam Franklin is going to be on the practice squad, and he's the roster spot that Corene Reed is going to take. So I have Corene Reed making it, and I have Sam Franklin being a practice squad guy because I imagine he will clear waivers. Obviously, you've got your 3 specialists. Now moving into practice squad, and we do have some changes from last week. obviously we've got Blake Watson here now instead of Tyler Bidet. I do feel like there is a chance Watson might not clear waivers, but right now I think they covet Tyler Bidet on the 53-man roster a little bit more than they do Blake Watson. Watson didn't really do much to help his case in that game against Arizona. Fullback, here's where things get a little bit interesting. Michael Burton's dealing with a hamstring injury, and they just signed Adam Prentice to fill that pure fullback role while he recovers. I don't know how long Burton's going to be out. If he has to miss regular season time, then I think Adam Prentice is going to take this practice squad spot, and then Burton would go on the short-term IR. But if he doesn't have to miss time, then Burton's going to be in the same role that he was last year, where they're going to elevate him from the practice squad on game day. Once he's out of elevations, then they'll just promote him to the 53. He's a special teams ace for you. He's got a role on offense as a fullback. Mike Burton isn't not making this team, but the question is he too injured right now to be on the initial practice squad? We'll find that out in due time. Otherwise, it'll be Adam Prentice in that role. Courtney Jackson, Joaquin Davis as your two practice squad wide receivers. I could also see Jerwan Newton maybe replacing Davis, but I know the Broncos really value Courtney Jackson's speed, and they think he could be a really good long-term return specialist, so I think they're going to keep Courtney Jackson on the practice squad. Caleb Lohner, I don't think is going to make the 53-man roster as of right now. He's still showing a lot of rawness at his position. That's to be expected. He's still learning how to play tight end, but I said it last night in a video, and it wasn't a very popular take. The Broncos could have drafted Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. He was available, and he was taken 4 picks later, the running back out of Arizona. The only reason Ja'Cory was available in the 7th round to begin with was because of NCAA eligibility issues, where the NCAA kind of screwed him over, in my opinion. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could have come in and been an immediate starter for you alongside R.J. Harvey. Remember, at the point of the draft, they hadn't yet signed J.K. Dobbins. They took a flyer on Dobbins in June, and I still think that Dobbins is more of a short-term solution as opposed to a long-term solution. You could have had your RB1 and RB2 of the future with R.J. Harvey and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Instead, they took Caleb Lohner, and I'm not trying to crap on Lohner here. I like Lohner as a player, and I think he's got good potential, but when you had a starting caliber player on the board, I don't think it was a very good process to take a project player. I understand that the 7th round is for projects, but not when you have a starting caliber player who is right there for the taking. I'm not trying to crap on Lohner at all. I'm really excited about his potential. I love him as a player, but he's still super raw, and I don't know if it was the right move drafting him when he's most likely not going to make the 53-man roster. So I kind of wanted to clarify that point. Sorry for going on the side tangent, but a lot of people, I think, misinterpreted my video from last night. The mistake that the Broncos made in that draft pick wasn't taking Caleb Lohner. It was not taking Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So I'll step off the soapbox there. I do think Lohner is going to make the practice squad, and he should be a long-term contributor for you starting in 2026. Caden Prieskorn, we already talked about him. He's kind of fringe on the 53 right now. I'm still erring on the side of Lucas Kroll, but if Caden Prieskorn goes out there in New Orleans and has a really good day, I could see him making the 53 and then Kroll making the practice squad. Xavier Truss, Clay Webb as your offensive lineman. I don't know if Frank Crum makes it at this point in time. I'm still going to maintain that Truss is ahead of Crum. We'll see if they find a spot for Crum, but as of right now, I don't have him making the practice squad. Jordan Jackson and Jordan Miller on the defensive line. Both of them have played really well. Andrew Farmer has been awesome. Unfortunately, there's not a spot for him on the 53, but hopefully you can sneak him through waivers and get him on the practice squad. Same thing with Jordan Turner, who had a couple of sacks in that game against Arizona, showed some massive flashes. I think Jordan Turner has definitely earned a practice squad spot. Don't have a spot for him on the 53, but he's a really good player, and I'm excited about his development. Damari Mathis, I know this might be a controversial one. He did give up that big play in the Arizona game on a double move, but outside of that, Damari Mathis has had a really good camp, and I think that he fits this scheme well. He knows the terminology. He knows the players around him. So I think keeping him around in a practice squad situation works well for both sides. I could also understand if Damari wants to move on and maybe try to go to greener pastures. I could get that as well, but as of right now, I do have Damari Mathis making it on the practice squad. I think the team feels better about him, and I think analysts feel better about him than the overall fan base does. And then Keidron Smith, I've got him making it same as last week. And then Sam Franklin, I think he'll be practice squad and then elevated for game day. I do want to briefly touch on the IR guys as well. Obviously, we have two guys out for the season, Matt Henningsen with an Achilles and Nick Gargiulo with his knee injury. And then I do have Nate Adkins and Drew Sanders going on short-term IR to start the season. And a change from a year ago. Last year and every other previous year, if you wanted to put a guy on the short-term IR, he'd have to be on the initial 53-man roster, and then you put him on IR. Now, you can put a player straight from the 90-man roster onto the short-term IR. He won't count towards your initial 53. That way you don't have to do the roster management juggling of waiving a vested vet or releasing a vested veteran so he doesn't have to go on waiver wires and then putting the player on IR and then re-signing the veteran. The Broncos did that with Mike Burton last year when they had to put a couple of guys on IR. So they don't have to do that stupid crap anymore. They can just put the guys straight on IR. You can do that with up to two players, and I think those two players will be Nate Adkins and Drew Sanders. So that's how I think things are going to shake out right now. Obviously, all of this is subject to change with the final preseason game, and some of these guys might not be available to re-sign on the practice squad. After they get waived, there is a chance that some other team might poach them, so this list is definitely going to be fluid as we go throughout the process. Alright guys, be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed, and let me know in the comment section below guys, is there anything you would change here? Where do you agree with me? Where do you disagree with me? Drop those comments down below guys. And until next time, I'm your host Gage Madrid saying peace out.